Hey everyone, this is Robin Wata.
This is Leanna Ah Hansen, and you're watching the Xtra Sznd Podcast.
Yes, I am so excited to have Leanna on this podcast.
Woo-woo.
Leanna is a hairstylist. She owns her own little salon up in Salt Lake. She's a dear friend of mine, and so I wanted to bring her on here so we could talk hair, talk fashion, reality TV, because let's be honest, that's our favorite hobby. Is
Honestly,
learning about other people.
Absolutely. Like, can I just tell you, like, if I wasn't a hairdresser,
You'd be a reality TV star.
Absolutely. Like, I would have so much free time. Like, in my picture perfect world-esque, Fred would be a billionaire and I would be home doing celeb gossip tea. Like, all the time. Like, I would just sit,
Fred, why are you not a billionaire?
Like, one job.
That's her husband.
That's my husband. We love Fred.
But again, I'm just excited to have you on here. But I want you to kind of introduce yourself, let people know a little bit more about what you've been up to within hair. Let us know. Where are you from? All the deets.
Yeah. So I'm from here. It's funny because I always tell people, like, people always ask me, like, where are you from? Where are you from? And I always say, like, I'm like from here in California. And Fred is always like, can you stop telling people that you're from Cali? You've been here for like 15 years.
He's like, you're a fraud.
Yeah,
you're
like,
not from
You've
Cali.
been here for 15 years. And I'm like,
you're like, weird. I'm 18.
Right. Weird. You like, weird. Anyways, so I'm from here, but my grandparents raised me here. My parents still live in California. So I'm like back and forth from here in California.
What part of Cali?
LA.
Okay. What part of LA?
Gardena.
So not LA.
Ooh, so that's by Torrance, if no one knows. Just kidding. No, so my grandparents raised me here. So like my whole upbringing was between here and California. I was kind of like those kids, like when I would get in trouble, my parents would be like, you're going back to California. We're sending you back here. Okay. And I'm like, okay, well, I hated it, honestly.
You hated going back to Cali?
Absolutely, because here was like home for me. Like all of my cousins and stuff were here. And then in LA, it was just my mom and my two siblings. And that was it. Like there
You're
was
like, that's not enough.
Yeah. And I was like, I feel trapped. I'm just kidding.
No, that makes sense.
So yeah, so from here, Rose Park to be exact. And then, so I've been doing hair professionally for 11 years, which I absolutely love. Like, people always ask me like how I like can be at the salon for like 10 plus hours. And I feel like I'm so fortunate to have such a great like clientele that it's almost like I go to work and hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
And somehow
and you chit chat, you catch up, you hear the tea.
Like somehow I get mixed in with a payment. And so I'm like, oh, you're paying me. That's right. $500.
You're like, don't forget the tip.
I'm like, would you like a tip?
So you've been doing hair for 11 years.
Right.
How did you start getting into hair? Was that something that you always had an interest in, or is that something that kind of grew on you like later in your adult years?
It's so funny because no, I hated hair. Like,
oh wait, you just wanted to be the billionaire's wife.
Yes,
That's
like I wanted, no, I'm not even lying. Okay, I have like a lot of like goals in life, right? So I wanted to be like a professional athlete. Mm-hmm. I wanted to play basketball. Obviously that didn't work out. And then I was like, okay, maybe I can become like a doctor or lawyer. And then figured out that I hated school. Like I barely passed high school.
Yeah.
Because I felt like my ADD at some point just started like going crazy. So how I started going to hair school was kind of weird, but I became the biggest butthead when I graduated high school. Like I was a bum, like complete bum. I had no job. I was like asking people for money, aka my grandparents, and I would use that money to buy weed and just smoke all day and just sleep.
Sounds like the average post-graduation. I'm just kidding.
I mean, for someone who barely graduated, just kidding. So I did that for a whole like summer. And then when all of my friends were like leaving for college, then I was like, well, I'm not going to stay in Utah. I'm going to make it look like I'm leaving for college too. So I moved back to California to my parents. And I stayed with them for a couple years. And my mom was like, well, why don't you go do hair? Like, why don't you do hair?
She just mentioned it casually?
Yeah, well, she was like, why don't you do like a trade school? If you don't want to go to college, like go to trade school. And I initially wanted to go to FITM.
Okay.
And so I kind of like looked into it. And so I told my mom, I was like, hey, I'm going to go to FITM. And she's like, do whatever you want to do. But where we lived and where FITM was like hours away from us.
Yeah.
So as a 19-year-old, my mom was like, no, I'm not letting you drive all the way hours away to go to school. Like, that doesn't make sense. So she's like, find something closer. And I was like, well, maybe I should try hair school. There was a hair school that I wanted to try out in or go to in Orange County. And Orange County from us was like 2 hours away. And my mom was like, no, you're not driving. So then I told my mom, if you let me go back to Utah, then I'll go and enroll in hair school over there since it's easier for me because it's not so far. And then I'll just go to hair school.
And there's a lot of different hair schools out here in Utah.
There's a ton.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to me.
Which one did you go to?
I actually ended up choosing to go to Paul Mitchell School.
Okay. Was there like specific reasoning for that?
There is. Because I knew that they were the best of the best. My whole theory of anything I do in life is kind of like, if you're going to do it, make sure you go to the best of the best.
Yeah. Like, don't half-ass it. Whole-ass it.
Yeah. Like pull your ass there.
Full ass effort.
Even if you don't have an ass. Just kidding. No, but that was always my thing. Like, if I do something, I want to go to the best of the best. Like, I don't want to go to like someone that's like mediocre, because I always tell myself, like, when I do hair, I actually want to be the best of the best being a hairdresser.
So I feel like, as a friend and somebody who follows you pretty closely on social media, something that I appreciate is I always see you studying new techniques for hair. And it's things that you're like posting about. You're just like, oh, learning this new technique about how to do this coloring type, or like how to work with this hairstyle. Like, you're always pushing yourself to learn something different. And I think, I don't know, it's just cool to see people finding a passion and then continuously putting an effort to learn, because I just know so many people who would probably get to some point where they're just like, I know everything. I don't need to learn anything else.
Right.
But you're always studying, you're always learning new things. And so I am kind of just curious, like, what are some of like your favorite hair trends that you've been able to see over the past couple of years? And are there any that give you like the ick?
So I feel like I'm like fortunate enough to have such a low maintenance clientele, which I love, love, love with all of my heart, because if you know me, you know I'm like the laziest hairdresser ever. Like, honestly, I'm not even lying. Like, I would rather like spend like the extra 30 minutes sleeping than to get up and wash my hair. Like, honestly, like just in the car, like I was like, oh my gosh, middle part. And then I've seen like all my dandruff like coming out, and I'm like, it's been 6 days since I washed my hair. Like, I need to get it together. But my favorite trends have always been like low maintenance hair. So like my balayages, like my single processes.
And that's like what you're known for.
Yeah, that's what that's what I specialize in, is like balayage. And I'm like, all my training is to become like a Redken artist as like their balayage specialist. So that's my favorite trend. And it's a trend that literally will never go away. Like, no matter how many times people are like, oh, it's so like such a weird trend, like especially like the older generation, because they think that it's like a half done hair, because they're so used to like
getting a full,
highlights are like going all the way to the root. And so when you're and like when you're coming out with like dark roots and like lighter ends, they're like, okay.
So you don't think like that's like a trend that's going to fade out as we get older, like
Absolutely
our generation?
Not. I don't think so. I think the balayage trend will always still be a thing. And now they're kind of being like more like smarter with it, because they're adding money pieces to the front and they're doing like all kinds of things to keep the balayage trend kind of going. So I think that the balayage will always be a trend. My biggest ick, and I have to say this.
I want to know.
I have to say this for the polys, because it's just so hard for us to have like hair expectations or being realistic with ourselves.
Like people who have black hair who want to go platinum blonde.
Like
in one sitting, in one day.
I will tell you this, like every time I go to my hairdresser, I always pull up a picture of Jennifer Lopez because I feel like she has like hair goals, even though we don't like her, which we'll get into it later. J-Lo has her like color is always so beautiful to me. So when I go to my hairdresser and I'm like, I want this.
J-Lo, please.
I'm like, I want this every single time. He's like, no. He's like, and I want to be a basketball player. And he's like 5'8". And I'm like, so the chances of you becoming blonde in one sitting, listen, I have a better chance of looking like Khloe Kardashian.
In one sitting.
In one sitting. So when I walk out of here, I'll be Khloe Kardashian.
Do you feel like that's like a common thing that people want within our community?
Yes.
It's like they just have like crazy expectations of what you're able to accomplish.
I'm grateful because not a lot of people have like crazy expectations. I feel like we're becoming more aware of what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
But like I said, like my biggest ick is like people coming in with unrealistic expectations, only wanting to pay like $150. If I were to spend a whole day with someone taking them blonde, one, I would never do that because I've had a lot of bad hair experiences when I first started.
Ooh, I want to hear. Like, what are some of the L's you've had to take while learning about hair?
Early in my career, and this is why I always tell people I will do sessions rather than doing a one-time sitting. Early in my career, when I had no clue, because it was so hard for me to become a hairdresser in a white state, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Utah is so white that they don't really understand how it works when it comes to like textured hair.
Yeah.
And especially dark hair.
And that's like mainly your clientele, right? Is like Pacific Islanders.
Absolutely. Like I want to say like 80% are Pacific Islanders.
Okay.
But I would say like working at a high-end salon. So I worked at Lunatic Fringe for 5 years, which is Angie Castanevis, who is on The Real Housewives salon.
We'll get into that in a little bit.
Yes. I loved it. Don't get me wrong. But it was just so hard to come as a Polynesian in a high-end salon like that and having to figure out how to do poly hair. Like coming out of hair school, they don't teach you shit. Like it's kind of crazy. So I feel like as you kind of like go throughout your career, it's kind of like you pick and choose and you learn as you go in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So early in my career, I had no clue how to do hair and I kept overachieving for my clients. And I think I probably burned off like 3 people's hairs. Like not burnt off, but like melted their hairs off.
Oh my gosh.
And it was such a traumatic thing for me that I swear and I promised myself I would never go through that again.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it was so hard for me as a hairdresser in the beginning, because I feel like I didn't find my niche until like 6 years into doing hair.
Do you feel like those experiences happened because you didn't know how to say no?
Absolutely. Like as a Polynesian, honestly, I felt like I was like obligated.
Yeah. You're like, I'm going to do it. Like, if this is what you're asking for,
Absolutely.
I'll do it.
And so like the craziest thing was being with these poly guests, I would be with them for about 6 hours and charge them like $150.
Damn.
Because I felt like I couldn't charge them the proper price.
Or like they wouldn't pay that.
Yeah, because I felt like it wasn't good enough. So I kept under delivering to them. And so I felt like I couldn't charge them that pricing, which then sucked for me because then my managers at some point were coming up to me like, you're actually losing money for us. Like you are literally using X amount of like color lightener, but it's not even equaling out to the amount of color you just used on this person's hair. Like, so you're actually losing money for us. And they said this one thing, like my manager or my boss said this one thing that always stuck to me. And from that point on, I was like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
He said, you can't judge someone by their pocketbook. You don't know what they are bringing. Like, and that for me, I kept doing that to my poly guests because I felt like they're just coming to me, but I don't know that they know that this is a high-end salon or that I should be charging them X amount because I felt like as poly people, maybe we couldn't afford it.
I know poly people be dropping a pretty penny to get their hair did.
Nowadays they are.
You're like, it wasn't like that 11 years ago.
At first, I was taking home like 36 cents.
You had to pay the salon you were working at 36 cents.
I had a balance due for them.
And so I'm just curious, like, going from working in like a high-end salon like that, what made you want to open up your own salon?
So,
and what has that been like?
It all started because my dad. So 7 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma, skin cancer. And for me, it was such a hard thing because I am the oldest girl. And I was so hurt by it. And because my parents lived in California, I had to figure out like my scheduling at that time. So it's kind of crazy. I felt like 2018, my life like totally flipped upside down and right side up. Like there was good and there was bad. Because 2018, we found out my dad had cancer. And then when I left Lunatic Fringe, so I quit Lunatic Fringe May 31st. And then I moved into our own studio suite with 2 other of my coworkers at the time. So we all moved in together. That was June 1st of 2018. So the next day, I went straight into working into my own like spot.
Yeah.
And it was all because my dad. So June 7th, me and Fred got married. So within like a whole week or 2 weeks.
Dang, that's a lot.
I quit Lunatic Fringe, started my own business, and then me and Fred got married. I'm so grateful for my husband. Like I love, love, love my husband because at that same moment, my dad was going into treatments and stuff because it was already stage 4. They were trying to get him to do like start treatments already. So me and Fred would leave Utah Saturday night. Our flight out to California was at 5:00. We would stay in California Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, come back Wednesday morning, and I would go straight to work. And then we would do the same thing.
You guys did that like every week?
Every single week for 3 months.
Dang.
Yeah. I felt like I was working just to buy me and Fred's ticket to go to California. But that was the whole reason why I started my own business was because
you needed like that flexibility.
I needed the flexibility and I needed to be with my dad at the time. Because at the time, my little brother was like young. I think he was like 18, 19. And my sister just joined the Navy. So she was stationed out in Reno. And so I felt like I was their only hope because my mom was still working. And the hospital that my dad was at was probably 2 hours away from where we lived. So when me and Fred would get there, we would go home, take a shower, and then my mom would take us straight to the hospital. We would stay with my dad during the night. My mom would get off work. We would switch, go home, nap, and then come back to the hospital. So that was like the reason why I needed to do my own thing was because I knew that Lunatic Fringe was going to give me the flexibility, but I needed to make sure that it wasn't going to be an issue.
Yeah.
So that's why.
No, I love that. And I feel like you made the best decision you could with the cards that you were dealt.
Right.
I feel like anybody in that situation, especially in like the Pacific Islander community, like we would put everything down in order to help our parents in that aspect. And so I just really commend you for doing the damn thing and making sure that you were present for your parents. And I know that he appreciated the hell out of that as well.
Right. And I don't regret it because I felt like that was such a bonding moment for me and my dad, but also my dad and Fred. And 6 years later, my dad like ended up beating cancer, but then he passed away in December. And so those moments, I feel like me and my husband have cherished so much because we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly with my dad's cancer. And it was just such a special moment for us that I don't regret it at all.
Yeah.
So.
No, I love that you're sharing this and like kind of just learning more about your family is so intriguing to me. Something else I kind of want to ask you about is you and Fred wanting to have kids.
Yes.
I know that you guys have started your IVF journey, and I wanted to know, what has that been like? I know you share so much of it on Instagram and like your social media, and I see like the ups and downs. Like, obviously I'm just seeing what you're allowing me to see,
right.
But I'm just curious if you have like, I don't know, like what has that been like? What do you feel comfortable sharing? What do you want people to know?
For the most part, sorry. For the most part, I'm pretty open about our journey because I feel like a lot of poly girls struggle with it because it's such a taboo thing to talk about in our community. And it just hurts me because I know that we struggle behind closed doors and in the dark. And me and Fred have been doing this for years. And the depression that I kind of went through has been so hard that I feel like I'm so lucky to have, one, my job and my clientele, and two, the support from my husband, obviously, has been like the thing that gets me every time. It's not hard. It's just tedious work.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of appointments, like struggling and this and medication. And you have to do this at a certain time. You have to do this. You have to do this. I, at one point, felt like everybody was progressing and my life was such at a standstill. Like, seeing people like progress and have families and this, and I couldn't bear the thought of like someone close to me having a kid because I feel like it would just shatter my heart. Eventually I started to like be open with it and I started to talk about it, which I feel like has healed a little bit of me.
Was there anything that kind of wanted you to start sharing more about it?
I just felt so alone. I felt like, I felt like the only poly girl that wasn't able to have kids. Like, I was seeing my younger cousins have kids and I was like, this is so crazy to me. Like, I am like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
Like it felt like I was being cursed and like, it was like, there was like karma. It's like, I felt like it was a karma for myself. But I felt like once I started to talk about it, once I became open about it, then it almost opened Pandora's box for everybody else that was struggling in the dark, silently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so...
And that you guys didn't have to be quiet about it.
Absolutely. And so I love it, though, because I started to see more girls documenting their, like, journey through fertility. And I love it so much because I felt like there were so many girls that were talking about like, well, other ethnicities were talking about like their fertility journeys and all that stuff, but I just never seen like a poly girl talk about it. Cause I felt like if I seen a poly girl talk about it back then man, I feel like a lot of like my depression that I was feeling would have been so much easier.
Yeah. Like you probably would have seen like a light at the end of the tunnel type of thing.
Absolutely. Because I felt like, I don't know, and maybe this is just me being me, but I feel like poly girls, we always relate on a different level than someone else that's going through something, like a white girl that's going through fertility. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like when I see poly girls talk about like issues that I'm going through, it makes me feel...
It resonates with you more.
Absolutely, because it's relatable.
Yeah.
Like our culture and everything else kind of like relates and resonates. Absolutely. So it just makes it so much easier. As far as our IVF journey, it's going. And it's like a 4-month process, honestly. Yeah. We just got our medication, which was $6,000.
I like the money that goes into IVF is always like so mind blowing to me.
Like we were lucky enough that Fred's insurance covered half of it. But if it didn't, we would be looking at around $26,000. And that's the thing that I feel so bad for is the ones that don't have insurance and can't afford IVF.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, what do I do? Like, do I go into debt trying to have a baby, or do I just kind of wait it out? And the sucky thing about it is, like, I always tell people, like, if you're struggling, don't wait. Like, I have gotten so many messages of, like, girls that waited and they were like, it's too late. Like, we got told, like, it was too late. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's just better to know what's going on than for you to just kind of not know.
Well, like, something about that is I remember I was working somewhere and multiple people started sharing about how they were having difficulties getting pregnant. And Benz and I had been married like maybe like a little over a year. And it like freaked us out. Like we were like, well, we don't like know until you know, kind of like what you said. But yeah, I was working somewhere and multiple people that I was working with were having difficulties getting pregnant or even staying pregnant and different things like that. And it kind of freaked us out. And that was the reason why we started contemplating, like, maybe we should start trying to have kids and just see. And like, luckily, like we were able to get pregnant, like pretty much right away. But like you said, like you don't know until you know. And sometimes I feel like people wait too long, like you mentioned. And by that point, it's like too late for them to do anything, even with IVF.
Right.
And so I'm glad that you guys really took a chance on these options that are available for you. And I'm just hoping for the best.
Thank you.
I just feel like you guys would be the dopest parents.
I hope so. Like, I always tell my clients, and they're probably so tired of me saying it, but like, in my perfect world, if our IVF works, I hope that we have twins and that we have girl twins. Because one thing is I want them to ruin Fred's life.
You want to raise like little mini Leanna Jr.?
Yeah, like Fred. I feel like Fred's going to be such a great dad. Like he is so loving. And then like he has such a soft heart for like girls. And I think it's because he has so many nieces that he wants to be a girl dad. And I want the good Lord above to bless us with girls because I want them to ruin his life.
He's like psych, you're going to get boy
all
triplets.
Boys. Right. That would be the day.
You thought.
He's like, hi, bye. I'm like, Lord, please, I promise I'll go back to church.
No, I just think it's so cool because, again, like as creatives, like there are real life experiences that kind of impact how we operate and like the career choices that we're able to make. But I feel like for you as a hairstylist, like you were able to pivot to help your dad when he was like fighting cancer. You're doing it now, like with your own business. You're doing it now even more with like even in the middle of IVF. Like it's just so cool to see, I don't know, just see like people like you share their real experiences because it's more than just you doing hair and it's more than just you doing balayage, like all these other things. It's like, these are things that are providing the means for you guys to do IVF. This is why you work crazy hours sometimes because you're just trying to do what you need to do. And so I just love hearing about your hair journey. And I kind of just wanted to learn a little bit more because I know that you used to do hair for Jen Shaw on The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And you were an original Shaw Squad member. From what I recall seeing your face on TV. So what was that like?
I won't even lie. Like, so one, I don't have anything bad to say about Jen. Like, I feel like for me, I actually got the good side of her because I wasn't working closely with them, like off on them were at the time. I was just doing her color and her cuts, and her blowouts every once in a while. It's funny because how I met Jen was, you know how I do celebrity gossip tea? Mm-hmm. When I like love celebrity gossip tea. When I found out there was a poly lady, like in The Real Housewives, I posted about her first. And then I followed her. at the time, she only had like 100 to 200 followers on Instagram. She was like nobody yet. And no one really knew anything about her. So I posted like, Jen, let me know. I will do your hair, blah, blah, blah. So then she wrote me. And this was during the Rose Bowl like game. She wrote me back and she was like, I would love it if you become my hairdresser, like in-house hairdresser, like especially for filming of season 1. And I was like, say less.
Yeah.
Like, let me know.
Were you still working at Lunatic?
Yes.
Okay.
No. I wasn't.
Okay.
I left Lunatic already. So she's like, I will contact you when I'm done here at the Rose Bowl game. And then blah, blah, blah. So then like 2 weeks later, Alpha comes into the salon and he's like, yeah, I just was at like a filming of The Real Housewives with Jen. And I was like, how do you know Jen? And he was like, well, how do you know Jen? Because she was talking about you like she knew you. And I was like, I just had like a small conversation with her on social media, but I don't know her. And he was like, that's so funny. So he was like, I'm going and doing a fitting for her. Why don't you come? So he calls Jen. We start talking and then we go up there. And the funny thing is like when we go up there, she's like talking to me. She's like, oh, this is where like the rooms are at. Like I'm actually going to live up there with her. If only she knew I was driving a 2004 Saturn, it would not make it a party stallion. I was like, Jen, unless you're going to give me a car. And then I have to haul my husband and Poppy. So how is this going to work? But yeah, so when it comes to Jen, it was crazy. We did that segment for that episode, which is so crazy because I don't know how, but that episode ended up being in the middle of the show or towards the end of the show. That was one of the first episodes that they filmed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it was so chaotic when they filmed. I was having like really bad anxiety to the point where I actually wanted to go sit in the car.
Was it because you knew you were going to be in front of a camera or?
That, but I also don't like being in the spotlight. Not that it was about me, but I didn't want, basically like being in front of the camera.
No, that makes sense.
So I was having like the worst anxiety. And that shot that we did where I'm like.
Someone YouTube that. Find the clip.
Literally, we did that like 6 or 7 times because they had to get the lighting. They had to do this. This wasn't right. This wasn't right. So I didn't think that would even remotely be close to being filmed. And so when I was like, I was just joking. And then when I seen it on the episode, I was mortified. Listen.
The girl who's afraid of being in front of the camera drew the most attention to herself in front of the camera.
Absolutely. And so when the whole like fiasco of her fraudness coming out, and that's the picture that they posted in like the OG Shaw Squad, and then like the bottom was like versus now, and they're all in jail suits and stuff. I was like,
like, not me.
Yeah. But I was actually really kind of upset because they lost our like papers that we had to sign. What is it called? Like NDA.
the releases?
Yeah. Is it NDA?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. We had to sign those at the beginning of the filming. So when we signed those, they took it from us. But then a week before they released the season, one of the producers wrote us, me and Alpha, because we were talking about it, and he was like, hey, we lost you guys' like NDAs. Do you mind like we're gonna send you one,
signing them again? And I think Alpha decided not to do it, right? And
I did too.
Oh,
but then when I looked at the episode, it's not that I didn't say yes, I just ignored them, and I was like, and so I'm like, did you guys find mine?
Yeah, they probably did find it,
but it's crazy
because your face was not blurred out.
That's like honestly,
I saw you all of you with your 2 arms raised.
So loud and proud. Like my son was in football. You know what I mean?
But I think what's cool about that is just like how you built up your network. I mean, the Afa that we're talking about is Afa Ah Loo. We've helped him. He's a Samoan designer. We've helped him with multiple fashion shows and different things like that. But I love that you kind of use that opportunity to shout out Jen, because when I found out that there was going to be a Tongan housewife, I was like, what the... who is this person? But I love that you use that as an opportunity to see how you could help her. And it turned into something bigger, into becoming like an in-house hairstylist for her.
Right.
I mean, obviously it didn't end well.
One job.
But it is what it is.
That's why I'm like, I don't have anything bad to say because, listen, everything bad that was said about her, that's that.
Yeah.
But from my point of view,
no comment.
No, literally no comment. But for me, like I said, like I was lucky enough to get like the good side of Jen.
Yeah.
Like I was lucky enough to get like just one-on-one personal time with her. We had deep conversations. We had conversations about her family. We had deep conversations about just me and Fred in general and all that stuff. So I had a different relationship with Jen than what everybody else had.
Yeah.
But
I mean, love her or hate her, Jen was a good part of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
She was. And I, like, listen, as annoying TV. As her crying was, she was great. She was good TV.
But I know that for me and you, we love celebrity gossip. Obviously, we keep up with the Kardashians.
Love the KKs.
Since the beginning.
Ooh, yes.
Have you seen all of the episodes?
You know what? I actually got bored after the first season, and so I just stopped watching it.
Of the new one on Hulu? Or
yes.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't get bored of it. I actually loved it more than the one on E. Because I feel like the new ones is just more raw, and it's just more of like not scripted.
I think that's why I like it.
Yeah. And so for me, I love the Hulu one.
And so, yeah, I think for me, when I'm watching it, it feels a lot more, I don't know, I feel more emotionally connected with them because Absolutely. I'm like, oh shit, like what do you do when it's the fan like that?
Right.
Like that episode when they find out about Tristan. Or like the second time that he messed up and they were like looking into IVF, like, or they were looking to having a surrogate.
Yeah.
And I was like, all of them were up working out at like 7 a.m. And I was like,
that is probably like the worst thing ever. Like if there's one thing that I tell Fred that I never want him to do is don't make me look stupid.
Yeah.
Like don't ever make me look stupid. And when I watched that episode, my heart like literally dropped for Chloe.
Yeah.
But also there was some points where I'm like, Chloe, don't be dumb. But it sucks because it's like, it's easier said than done. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Well, like I feel like people always look at the Kardashians and are always like, oh, they're stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. But I'm like, obviously it's working. Whatever they're doing, all the businesses they've launched, like not all of them have been successful, but I feel like they're all hustlers in their own way.
You can't hate them.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like, yeah, they're not self-made, but they have the best momager ever. Like,
Goals.
honestly. Like, the fact that she takes, like, I think, so when I did, if you are not following my celebrity tea, I'm sorry, you don't know any of this, but it sucks. But when I did my research, I think Chris takes 5 or 10%.
Yeah, I think it's 10%. They've talked about that on the show.
From each of her daughter's businesses. And the good thing about Chris is that she actually had all of the girls have a business so that they can come, so that they had like incomes, multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
I just think that's the smartest thing a mother can do.
I know, she set them up for success. The empire
Absolutely.
they built, I'm jealous.
Like you can't be mad at them because they're smart.
Well, speaking about reality TV, we are going to see the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives come out soon. And I know you've been like sharing some highlights about these Mormon wives.
Yes.
If you guys don't know, these are like those mom TikTok influencers who got caught in like that swinging scandal.
Yeah.
And now they're coming out with a show.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know like too much about the situation because I don't follow them on TikTok. Well, I lie. I don't follow them on TikTok, but I do know enough about the situation. I don't know any of them by name, but I know that you've been kind of like deep diving into who they are, who they've been married to, what their correlation is to so-and-so or whatever. And I'm just curious, what do you think about the show? Like, do you have an opinion about them kind of exploiting like the term Mormon and putting it part of their show?
I do. I have a lot of thoughts on this because I am not LDS. And so for me, I have my husband and his family that they're super strong in the church. And I also have family members that are super strong in the church. So for me, it kind of hits, it's a little triggering.
Yeah.
I feel like growing up Polynesian, it was always God first, family second. You know what I mean? Especially like Tongans. So I think that playing with any religion and using any like Mormon or like Methodist or like Sestonga or like anything for clickbait and for clout, you're pretty much just trash.
Yeah, well, like something that I know a lot of people probably have questions about is like, are these girls even Mormon? Are they still Mormon? And it doesn't look like the majority of them are. The thing is like, I know people are like dragging them on the internet right now for like the name, or like people are like, we don't claim them,
right?
All this different stuff. But for me, I was kind of feeling the same way because I'm an active LDS member.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, okay, but some of them are active.
Right.
And even though they don't choose to like live by these same standards that have been set by the church, I'm like, does that make them not Mormon just because they don't do that?
Well,
And so, I don't know, like, again, it's kind of just like that gray area that I feel where I'm just like for me, I'm an LDS member. I'm hosting a podcast. Sometimes I say things that probably shouldn't be said if I were sitting in church, and I don't give a fuck, if I'm being honest. You know what I mean? But I feel like people may watch this podcast and be like, well, Robin's not a real Mormon because
right.
he acts like this, or he's wearing this sleeveless vest or whatever.
Where are your garments at?
Yeah, where are my G's? But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like people would try to categorize me as somebody who's not active. And so I kind of feel for them in that sense, because I'm like, okay, well, like, yeah, they're doing things that haven't been taught by the church. I think what I don't like is how they imply that this was like pushed onto them by the Mormon church.
Right.
When they're like, oh, you're supposed to have kids by the time you're 21.
Right.
Or like women are taught to like serve their husbands. I was like, is that what women are taught?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what women are taught.
It's just such a hard conversation. Like, if you're getting down to the religion part, because I feel like people get triggered so easily. And there are things that like are said that probably people are not meaning.
Yeah.
But for me, I do feel like that whole thing is messy. I just finished doing the last girl of the 8 girls that are like in the show.
Gonna be featured on the show.
Yeah. I just did my last like summary of her, because I've been doing like deep dives of like who they are and if they're still active or not active.
When she says like these deep dives, there's just, I don't even know where she finds this information, but she'll do like an Instagram story. She'll put a photo of them. She'll be like, oh, this is her second marriage. They didn't know who the first baby daddy was for the first kid. Yeah. I'm like, how do you find this out?
You know what's funny? Like, so many people are like, how do you know these things? And like, okay, so me and Fred, like when I started doing it, he's like, you know, the amount of times you spent like looking into these girls' lives, you could have finished our taxes a long time ago. Which I do need to finish, and shout out to our CPA guy. I will get that to you probably like next week, but because I have Blake Lively next.
Oh yeah, I'm just speaking of celebrity gossip with Blake Lively and like that new movie that she's in. It Ends With Us. I haven't seen it. Did you go watch it?
No, and I don't plan to, because the way that Blake is, and here's my thing. The second thing about it is like Blake and Ryan were one of my favorite celebrity like couples. Like I loved them because I felt like they always stayed out of like the limelight. But once this movie aired and things started coming out about her, literally cancel her.
Did you see the interview?
I did.
Like the bad interview
and it
that
was,
she did?
She's like, I like your bump. And she's like, I like yours too. Listen, I almost looked down at my stomach and I was like, do I have a bump? I'm like pulling out my sweater. I'm like,
speaking of bumps.
Speaking of non-bump. But I felt so bad because then I did see that the interviewer literally, she said after that, she almost like rethought her whole career because of that comment.
That interaction.
Yeah, that interaction. Because honestly, if you haven't seen it, it is so freaking cringing. And like, it's almost like Blake Lively is like this little bratty girl that just is like nepotism.
Well, I think it's like crazy like how people's perceptions can change so fast because I feel like they were like a fan favorite for like celebrity couples. But then for me, like I didn't go watch the Blake Lively movie. I did go see Deadpool. And I went in, obviously Ryan Reynolds is like the main character in that movie. But I was like watching it and I was like, I don't feel like you're acting. Like I feel like you're just being yourself. And it annoys me.
Yeah. Well, do you know the whole controversial thing about the movie?
For the It Ends With Us?
Yes.
The most that I've seen about it is like how they've been promoting it so differently with her and Justin because he is her co-star and also the director of the film. Right. They all unfollowed him on social media. Right. But I think like lots of people were up in arms about how they've been promoting. Oh wait, I need to talk about this. But
it's a mess.
They do the interview with her and she's just like, girls, bring your friends, wear your florals, come over to the movie theater, yada, yada, yada. They're like, this movie needs trigger warnings. It's about domestic violence.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, there's like this TikTok trend. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's about people promoting movies as if Blake Lively was promoting it. Somebody.
Yes.
This is probably the worst one I've seen. He's making a list and checking it twice. Come to the theater to come watch Schindler's List. Like, I just remember watching that TikTok and I was like crying because I'm like, that's literally what it was like. Like, bring your florals.
It's so crazy how like different they were. Like,
just like the marketing of it is wild.
Well, just like, I forgot what I was watching, but they were like, the way that Blake wanted the character to be portrayed was just like a Sex and His like City kind of like girl.
Well, what's funny is like every time I see her talking about the movie, anytime I read comments in the video, wherever it may be, Facebook, Twitter, like TikTok, Instagram, people are always like, did she read the book?
Yeah, no, like legit, like people are like, girl, I'm actually so confused. And I'm actually confused by her. But long story short, I'm going to do not a topic, but I am going to talk about Blake Lively and just the downfall of her, especially from this movie.
Kind of like J-Lo. Like J-Lo's taken a hard left.
Listen, and we're happy about that. We are.
I'm not a J-Lo stan, but anytime I see those videos of her performing for her concert that she ended up canceling.
That like only like 50 people attended, and I'm sure it was just all of her like staff.
And now she's divorced from Ben, or she's getting divorced. Which,
honestly, let's be honest, we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
I knew saw that from so far away.
Absolutely. But now, I don't know if you've seen this, but now they're saying that, like, Ben had something to do with her, like, documentary. And before that, people were like, he had nothing to do. I didn't watch the
documentary.
It honestly, I read about it, and everyone's like,
I've seen enough clips.
Don't waste your life on this.
Yeah, I've seen enough clips of it to know that I would not enjoy it.
But they were saying that, like, Ben was so embarrassed of this documentary that, like, when they interviewed him, he was like, well, you know, it's my wife's money and it's just, she wants to do it, so I'm going to support her. But now they're saying, like, Ben had a huge part in her documentary and all that stuff. And so, speaking of Ben, sorry, just a side note, now that we're talking about Ben Affleck, one of the girls
on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives,
Jen, her name is Jennifer Affleck. Her husband is Zach.
You posted this. He's first cousins with Ben.
And that's Ben Affleck's first cousin is Zach. And so she has the Affleck last name. But also I think she's like Latin. So there's two girls that are like
people of color.
Yeah. And it's Jen and then it's Lila and she's black. So yeah, so back to the Secret Housewives. Secret Housewives.
Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Yeah, so that's the connection with Ben. So
Who knows? Maybe you'll end up doing hair for some of them for their show.
I doubt it. I doubt it because one of the girls is a hairdresser.
Oh, yeah.
And she is getting all the smoke right now.
Why?
On TikTok. Because her name is Jessie. So let me tell you this. A lot of people don't know this. And one of my followers told me this. So shout out to you, Olivia. Jay-Z Styles is her company name. And she's actually from Utah County. A lot of them are from Utah County. So she started her extension business here in Utah County and from Orem, actually. Here.
Wow.
So shout out to Orem. Shout out to you guys. So anyways, she has Jay-Z Styles. She has a hair care line and she has an academy. So she is getting all the smoke right now on TikTok because apparently she's a mean girl. And everyone that attends her academy are mean girls. And so there's a couple of girls that are on TikTok saying like, we applied for Jay-Z Academy. We wanted to go there. We love her. But when they went into interview, which if you go to hair school, you know that you do not interview.
Yeah,
it's like a school. You just go in and apply and they take your money or the government's money, whatever comes first, whatever hits their direct deposit first. So the girls were on there saying like total mean girl vibes, didn't like it, like nothing back from them. So they have like a specific look that they want all the girls in their academy to be. But Jessie is actually a hairdresser. Mm-hmm. And so the name Jay-Z comes from her first name, which is Jessie, and then her ex-husband's name, which I think is Zach.
She put that in her business name?
Because they started the business in a sense while they were together. And she just left it. If I was the new husband, I would be like, girl, bye. And bye with your business name.
Oh, wait, this is the one that's married to Jordan.
Yes.
Nagatikara.
Yes. People were like, is that a Maori last name? And I'm like, I have no clue. Is he white?
No, he is like Pacific Islander.
You're
I don't
lying.
know like how much, but I went to school with him. We went to high school together. I've actually known him since middle school. Like we're friends on Facebook. I think I like was like a teacher's aide or something for like some of his classes or whatever. But he was always really chill in high school.
Yeah.
But he's married to her.
Yeah, he's married to her.
But yeah, he does have like a Pacific Islander background.
Yeah, people were asking me like, is that a Maori last name? And I'm like, to be honest.
Yeah, I probably butchered how I pronounced that because I'm not Maori. Surprise.
Listen, I didn't even like attempt it because the fact that I would get canceled so fast. Yeah. No, I'm not going to attempt it.
No, but I'm just excited to see this show and just see the heat that is going to turn up. Obviously, once the show airs.
Totally. Like a lot of people are boycotting it. I did see that people were even like throwing out petitions.
I like trash TV though. I'm like,
honestly,
is it going to be a train wreck? Probably. But I'm like, that's how I felt about Jersey Shore. And guess what? I watched Jersey Shore.
Like, and I love like, even like the Real House of Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Boring. But I still watched it.
Yeah.
Like, they're so stupid and boring, some of these shows that I watch, but I still watch it.
I think I like reality TV because I watch it and I'm like, I'm so glad my life doesn't suck as bad as their lives do.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that money doesn't solve all of your problems.
Like, honestly, like, money can't buy happiness is what I see with these girls. But also, like, getting back to the secret wives of Mormon wives, secret lives. When I was doing my research on them, not a lot of them are like members. Yeah. Like a lot of them.
Or like they're not active or.
Yeah. Like.
So that's like what makes it feel like more clickbaity.
Yeah. Well, one of the girls, actually Jen Affleck, she actually confirmed it because she went on Weekly Trash and did that podcast and was like, yeah. Like, because she's super strong.
Yeah, she felt that they like took a vote on it or something.
And she was like, I'm super strong in the church. And so she was like, when I seen the title, of course I was like hesitant to join it because she was like, it's just not, this is not a good look. Like it's going to upset a lot of people. But then she actually did confirm it that the rest of the girls were like, done. Like we're going to use this as a PR stunt as like clickbait. So the thing that a lot of people don't understand is like, whether you hate it or like it, it's clickbait.
Yeah.
It's still a thing.
And the people will be tuned
absolutely.
in.
Like it's still a thing that people are still going to like watch. And I think for people that
maybe this is our route to becoming billionaires. It's just not having morals. Maybe we just need to like get rid of these chains that bind us, which are our standards and morals.
Absolutely. And so like it's actually kind of crazy because I'm like, I don't know. Like, do I feel like I would ever do something like that? Do I feel like I can like turn my back on like my dignity in a sense and just do it for, because a lot of these girls
secure the check?
Absolutely. Because it says like a lot of these girls do it for the fame. And like for Jay-Z, it's for the exposure for her business. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess we'll freaking see because it's coming out soon. But
I'm excited.
I'm just so glad that you were able to jump on the podcast, give us some celebrity tea, telling us more about your hair, your personal hair, and how you did it before you got here, as well as the hair that you do for your clients.
So if you see my dandruff, just know it's relatable. I'm sure your dandruff is out there too.
It's really dry out here in Utah.
She's not thriving right now. It's been 6 days.
No, but I'm so thankful that you were able to come on, and I just can't wait to see more celebrity tea from you.
Love. Thank you.
Gracias.